Hi guys, it's Pam. It's been a while since I've talked to you all, but today's a very important lesson on how to recognize signs and symptoms of a stroke. I've experienced this in the past year and a half with my mom, and I wanted to share this with you guys because it's very important information. And even me being a medical person, I'm not a doctor, but in the past 20 years of my life, I've seen and experienced quite a lot in the operating room. But never have I experienced somebody going through this own personal experience. So I wanted to share with you everything I've learned. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to be taking a lot of this information from UC Health. This is a patient education guide about stroke, different kinds of stroke, how it can be prevented, and what to do to stop it. So let's get started. Towards the back, we've got this page called Stop a Stroke, Be Fast. That stands for BE for B and then fast. So if you can remember, be fast and remember what each of these letters stand for, that will help you. The B stands for balance. Does this person or you have sudden difficulty in standing or walking? Are you dizzy? Look for that. Even if you think you're just dehydrated, start being aware of what's going on with you. The E stands for eyes. Sudden loss of vision or double vision. Do you see two things? Are things blurry? Do you, and I learned this with my mom, is there severe redness on one side of the eye, the right eye or the left eye? My mom had a stroke this past year, and 2 days before we actually ended up calling 911, she had a completely red eye, and we didn't know where it was coming from. But I am guessing that was the very first signs and symptoms that we saw of her stroke. Nothing before that. And not everybody presents these kinds of signs and symptoms, but there's a whole slew of things to look out for. And that's just the first one when I look back that I can think of. Number 2. Next is fast. F-A-S-T. So F is for face. Is there uneven? Is your face uneven? Is there drooping when you smile? Is it crooked? That's a huge thing. Strokes usually impact one side of the brain, and so it will show up on the other side of the body. A is your arm. Is one arm weak? Does it not feel as strong as the other one? S, speech. Is there slurred or jumbled speech at all? Are you having difficulties getting words out, stumbling across things? And T, time to call. Call 911 immediately if you suspect any of these symptoms. So here's story time for me. So last year, my mom's been living with me, and I work from home since the pandemic. And after a meeting I had, I suddenly heard her grunting. So I ran downstairs to where her bedroom is, and she was on the floor. I panicked. I mean, she couldn't get up. She couldn't walk. She said, "I think I'm having a stroke." She said that very clearly. I talked to myself to be calm, be calm, be calm. I ran to get my phone and I called 911. So they immediately asked me all of these questions and just went over with you. She passed all the tests. So they asked her to speak. She did not have slurred speech. Could she lift up one leg? Could she lift up another leg? Could she point her finger to her nose with both hands? She could do all of the tests that they asked. However, they did not ask, can she walk? Is she normally a walker? Can she still walk? They did not ask that question. So there were some things that were missed in that phone call, I feel like, to call a mobile stroke unit. And this is why I'm providing this information to you. Another person I know whose husband was having signs and symptoms of a stroke, he could not, He couldn't get his ring off. He couldn't do something with his wedding ring. He was having difficulty grasping onto things. So look for anything. It doesn't have to be these exact things for the be fast. Just be aware and cognizant of what is going on that's different with this person today that they were fine with yesterday. Numbness is a huge thing. Another person recently I learned was experiencing numbness and not talking about it. People just want to avoid it, or they don't think there's anything wrong with them, but that's where the problem comes. Okay, the second side to this story, because my mom did not have cause for alarm of stroke symptoms, they sent instead of the mobile stroke unit, they sent the ambulance. Ambulance comes, takes her into the hospital, takes her into the emergency room, and she's still not experiencing a whole lot of signs and symptoms. Didn't even ask anything. They're busy. It's an emergency room. However, when I started noticing her slurred speech. Her mouth was then starting to be crooked. Me trying to get people to come to the room was hard because it's an emergency room. Again, they're helping with all of these other patients that they're triaging for help. It was not until she had to go to the bathroom that I got a nurse to get a wheelchair to come take her in that she goes, "Oh my gosh, you're having a stroke." They call the stroke people, they come in, they take her down the hall for a CT scan. A CT scan has to happen first. A CT scan will show a clot in your brain that's clogging up an artery that causes major strokes and death right away. So that's when they administer clot busting medication. And this stuff works miracles for people who get there fast enough to administer it. However, with my mom's situation, the neurologist had come in and talked to me and told me that they did not find a clot in her CT scan. So therefore, they could not and would not administer that clot busting drug. Because in doing so, you could actually cause more harm than good if you were to do that. So with the mobile stroke unit, they also have CT scans in there. If that mobile stroke unit had in fact come to my house, they would have given my mom a CT scan in the mobile stroke unit and not had found a clot there either. Doesn't mean she's not having a stroke, however. It just means that they cannot administer that clot busting medication. They had to use an MRI to detect what was going on with her. MRI machines often take more time to get to because there's fewer of them. So she did not get to have an MRI scan until 5:30 that next morning, which did in fact show that she had an ischemic stroke far back in her brain in the little branches. So long story short of this whole thing is, could it have been prevented that day if I was strong and fast? I don't think so, because after all is said and done, she did not have a clot that they could see on a CT scan to use that clot busting medication. So the best way for her to have not had this happen to her was to lead a life of complete prevention, which is in my next video. So with that, I hoped you've learned some things, and stay tuned if you want to learn how to prevent a stroke in the best way possible. That's all for now, guys. Bye-bye.